You're a good boy. You're a good boy. This is Milo. Milo needs a bath. You stink. You stinky boy. This right. Okay, so let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I thought that I would film this video for you guys today. I've been thinking about filming it for a while now. As you guys can see by the title, it is going to be all about dogs and their liver problems / liver disease. This is Milo. He is a 9-year-old Yorkshire Terrier. He is pure-blooded. He is about 5 to 6 pounds and he had some liver issues a couple months ago that we are going to be talking about today. So I know I've mentioned this several times in past videos on my channel, but in case you're new here, well, welcome. But in case you're new and you haven't seen any of my previous videos, as you guys may or may not know, I have been dealing with Milo's liver and some issues with his liver levels for the past couple of months now. We did have all of his blood taken, we had a bunch of blood work done, and we did have a urinalysis as well. It did come back and show that he was getting a slight urinary tract infection, so he did get started on antibiotics for that, which that wasn't a really big deal, but it also showed that his alkaline phosphates and some of his other urine levels were like quadruple what they should have been. Milo's was at 1400, so we were extremely worried, very alarmed, and we were just panicking. Obviously, if your blood test is pulling numbers like that, along with all of the other urinalysis that we had done, they just weren't looking very good. It is very worrisome, so I'm going to tell you guys kind of the whole process of what we went through to get Milo's levels back to where they needed to be, and also just some things that I learned in my research regarding liver disease and liver problems in dogs. So at the end of this video, after we've gone over all of the nutrition and all of the details of the diseases and the effects and the symptoms and things like that and how to treat it or how we treated it, I am going to show you guys exactly what I was cooking for Milo, and we will do that at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. A disclaimer before we get into this video, I do want to stress that I am not a vet. I am not any way, shape, or form trained in the vet field for animal medicine in any way, shape, or form. Everything I'm going to be telling you in this video is what I've been told by my vet, by my naturopath, by online research, reading books, and my own experiences. I am just speaking from what I've been through with Milo. Obviously, if you're having problems with your dog's liver or any type of a health ailment, please go to a vet and see them first and foremost before doing anything else. But this video is just going to be about my experiences and my recommendations on what I did to help Milo. So this is going to be a pretty long chatty video. I hope you guys are ready for this. So I guess the first thing we should talk about is what exactly is liver disease, or rather what are some problems that can go wrong with livers. Well, obviously there are a lot of different things that can go wrong with a dog's liver. It can be an aging liver, it can just be failing, they can be getting too much protein, too little protein, their levels can be thrown off from an imbalanced diet, and so many other things. Whenever we realized that Milo was having some problems with his liver, we were looking at a lot of different issues that it could possibly be. So we started doing our research, and we obviously talked to the doctors, and some of the things that they were worried it could be, seeing alkaline phosphate levels of as high as 1400 is very unusual for dogs. Now Milo is 9 years old, so obviously with him being older, there is always the chance that he was having liver failure. Older dogs oftentimes can have liver failure, sometimes for no reason at all. Sometimes it can be because it's an enlarged liver where their liver is too big for their body. There is also something called a microvascular liver, where basically their liver is so tiny. If they are a dog that's maybe bred to be like a teacup or something. Milo is a very small Yorkie. He's only about 5 to 6 pounds, so that was something that we definitely had to consider with him. Luckily, Milo does not have microvascular liver disease. His liver is a perfect size, and his vessels in his liver are very healthy, so we're really happy about that. There is also something called a liver shunt, which is very common, again, in dogs that are bred to be very, very small. Luckily, there is a test you can have for that. Milo had that test done when he was very, very small, and luckily he was completely cleared of that. Typically though, if your dog does have a liver shunt, you will see signs of that when your dog is very, very tiny as a puppy, maybe even just 6 to 8 weeks old. Your dog may be struggling to grow, struggling to gain weight, or is kind of sickly or lethargic, and typically that can be a sign that there is a liver shunt problem with your dog that is due to breeding. It has nothing to do with anything that you did. There are surgeries that can fix liver shunts in dogs. In fact, there is a university here in Tennessee who is leading amazing studies on dogs' livers, and they have successfully done liver shunt surgeries. That is a whole nother thing, and I could go into that deeply because that is something we had to look into for Milo when we very first got him. But luckily he tested negative for the liver shunt issue, so we can shelf that discussion for another time, but that is something else to consider. Another problem is just a general liver disease where the liver can be inflamed for many different reasons. Obviously I don't know all of them. There are a lot of things that can go wrong wrong. And I have heard of a lot of cases and read a lot of cases online and even talked to my vet about sometimes the liver just fails, and it might not be because of diet. It could just be because of age or other contributing factors. The vet was pretty sure that in Milo's case, the reason his liver levels were shooting so high at 1400 when they should have been in about 100 range was because he could have come in contact with something very toxic. He could have eaten something outside. She said he could have eaten a plant or a flower or who knows what, and it could just be working its way out of his liver, and it would be a temporary thing. Obviously, while that was something to consider, we still had to cover all of our bases and make sure that it wasn't something more serious and long term. So we dove straight in on the research. We called a naturopath as well as our regular vet. We scheduled him multiple appointments to make sure that we could pin down, run more tests, and figure out exactly what was causing his levels to spike. So I know that I mentioned that we didn't see any initial signs in Milo as far as something going on with his liver. It was just a gut intuition that told me something was wrong. For me, I'm with my animals 24/7, so I'm very intuitive and I watch them, so even the slightest little change in them, I really tend to notice. So if you're watching this, maybe you had a similar situation, or maybe your dog is actually showing some really strong signs. So let's talk about the signs of liver disease or liver issues in a dog. There are a lot of different signs and symptoms that can flag a liver disease problem with a dog, so let's talk about a few of those. Some of the signs that you may notice in your dog if it does have a liver problem can be an increased amount of thirst. Your dog could be really, really thirsty and just seems like it can't get enough water and just be kind of gorging itself on water. They can also be kind of lethargic. If you have an older dog, that may be kind of hard to tell, but typically they would be less active, especially in advanced cases. That can be an indicator that there is something wrong with its liver. Another sign to look for is bloat in the belly. Whether your dog has eaten or not, you may notice that the belly is usually bloated and maybe really, really rounded. This is something that is common with dogs in liver problems and liver disease. And of course, there are more severe symptoms in later stages of things wrong with the liver, such as neurological disorders. Obviously, the liver is meant to clean out toxins from the dog's body, so if those toxins are just floating around in the dog's body, unfortunately, it can affect their brain. They can have things like seizures and have much more severe symptoms and neurological issues along with that. Again, those are more severe stages of liver disease. There are other types of symptoms as well, but it is something that you should definitely talk to your doctor about if you sense anything wrong with your dog whatsoever. Another symptom that you can look for is an increase in urination. Maybe your dog is having frequent accidents in the house. In fact, Milo had a couple of accidents in the house the week that I thought something might be wrong with his liver, and I knew this going in. Of course, I hadn't done as much research as I've done now on liver disease in dogs, but the fact that he had multiple accidents over the course of like 4 or 5 days, it just made me kind of take notice. I kind of worried, and then of course I ended up taking him to the vet. Now Milo is known to have accidents in the house, so this wasn't highly unusual for him or anything like that. If he gets salty about something, or if the cat is laying on his blanket or something like that, he is known to go pee on the cat bowl. He's very, very sassy like that. But again, just because he had several accidents over the course of about 3 or 4 days, it was a good idea just to take him to the vet, and I'm so glad that we did. But if you see any symptoms like that, be sure to take your dog to a vet immediately. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how to diagnose exactly what is wrong with your dog's liver. Because there are so many different things that could be wrong with the liver, whatever it could be, you still need to narrow that down and diagnose it, and so we're going to go over that now. So some of the first things that we did with Milo with ruling out what it could possibly be is you always want to look at your dog's diet first. Now obviously when you go to your vet, they're going to go over all of this with you, but it's very important to just make sure that your dog hasn't eaten anything unusual. Did you do a sudden diet change recently? Did you start a new treat? Is it possible your dog got into something outside? Is your yard not fenced in so you don't know what's growing or where your dog could have possibly been? Is your dog's food a really, really cheap brand? Maybe something that's not the purest or has a lot of byproducts in it, or is maybe too high in protein for the type of dog that you have. It really just depends, but you will have to go over all of this with your vet and determine what exactly caused your dog's liver to possibly malfunction. Another thing with diagnosing what exactly is wrong is you're going to want to run tests. Now there are several blood tests. You can do an entire liver workup, which is what we did with Milo several times at the vet. The first thing you're going to want to do is do a blood test and a urinalysis, and that may or may not tell you exactly what was wrong with your dog's liver, and it will also give you your number read back. So if your number is spiked like Milo Milo's alkaline phosphates were, that will be a really good indicator of what exactly is wrong with your liver, and if it is in fact the liver or something contributing to the liver, like the gallbladder. The gallbladder can also do things like gallstones and such, which can also affect the liver, so you want to make sure that they look at multiple organs. Milo's gallbladder was absolutely fine. His urinalysis, again, did say that he was starting to get a UTI, but that's nothing that some antibiotics couldn't fix. So we did start him on antibiotics, and that took care of that. However, we still had that liver problem to look at. So I have all of Milo's medical paperwork here, so we can kind of look and see what the test results were, what his levels were and everything, as well as his history. Something that was very important to mention is that in January of this year, like I said, this all happened a couple months ago. However, in January, Milo did get neutered as well as a teeth cleaning. With older dogs, before they put them under to do things like teeth cleaning or anything under anesthesia, vets a lot of times want to run a full urinalysis and blood work to make sure that your dog can properly filter the anesthesia out of their liver and out of their body so that they will not have an increased risk of not waking up from being under in surgery. So luckily, we had those test results from January and all of Milo's levels to compare to then, and we could see that in January there was absolutely nothing wrong with Milo's liver and all of his levels were perfect. We're very overprotective of Milo, so we did do a full body x-ray. I will insert a picture of his x-ray for you guys. That was something that we decided to do extra just to make sure that he didn't have any stones or anything going on in there. Milo did have a few urine stones in his urine like tracker whenever we did get him fixed, but again, that's something that little dogs can have. It comes and goes, but that is something to mention. But like I said, in January all of his levels were perfect, so we knew that this was something that was recent, and that really helped kind of narrow down how long it's been going on and what could have possibly caused it. So I don't know if you guys can see this very well. It's probably going to look like a bunch of gibberish, but this is one of the actual workups that we had Milo do in January, and as you can see, like I said, he is in the normal for all of his levels. They tested everything. Everything on here is glucose, calcium, creatine, phosphorus, potassium, sodiums, everything you can imagine. They also did his ALP, his ALT, and his AST, and his alkaline phosphate, and everything was in the normal, and it says here the normal range is 5 to 160, which is about what I was thinking, so that was normal as well. So after the blood test and urinalysis, that did not definitively tell us what was wrong. However, there are more steps that you can take, which I highly recommend because it cleared a lot up for us. We were referred to a specialist who does specifically like ultrasounds, sonograms, and x-rays and things. So it did take us a week to get that appointment. Waiting was excruciating. In the meantime, the doctor did put us on a prescription medicine and some other things, which I'm going to mention in a later part of the video, but I do want to mention that now just so you know we were doing things in the meantime. Basically, while we were waiting for that week to get that appointment, we did go through some measures to kind of make sure that Milo's liver wasn't getting worse, or maybe even try to reverse whatever problems were going on, as well as we decided to further research. Now, a lot of time with vets, and I say this with caution and very respectively of vets and the veterinary profession, but a lot of time with vets, sometimes you kind of have to read between the lines. And I'm not saying not to take everything your vet says, you know, with a grain of salt or anything like that. Obviously, always consult with them. Some of the things that our vet was telling us, not to say it wasn't what we wanted to hear, because obviously we wouldn't know what we should be hearing, but we are very cautious to just take every single thing that they say and never question it or do our own further research. I'll elaborate. Basically, our vet suggested that to help Milo's liver problems, we put him on an iScience diet by Hills. I will post a picture of that because we actually returned it all. We didn't use it. I was really unhappy with this diet, but essentially it is a prescription dog food that you can get. It's very bland. It is just chicken and rice. That is it. And then it has a ton of added vitamins and minerals, which may sound great. However, there is no vegetables or anything like that. And while yes, they are providing all of the nutrients that he would need artificially in the food was like a hard log. It was so hard. He didn't really like it. And I found that it just was a very processed looking food. I don't even really know how to describe it. It was just the most bizarre thing. While I understand it is made to be a good diet for dogs with liver problems, and I'm not trying to deter anyone from listening to their vet, but I guess my issue with it is that a lot of time, if you ever go to the vet and they ever tell you about a food that's really good for your dog, like Royal Canin is one that is huge with Banfield, which is a vet that we took Milo to. A lot of times those vets will push those foods because they're being paid by those brands, if that makes sense. Now, yes, a lot of those food brands and things like that, maybe they are good quality ingredients, or they've done a lot of tests and studies to show that they are not harmful to dogs and things like that, and they've been certified and all of these things, which is great. But the issue is also that a lot of the foods they were recommending to us were hard foods, which are very dehydrating. They're known to not be the best for dogs when dogs are meant to be on more of a natural, raw, or even just a wet diet. In the wild, dogs aren't eating hard, processed, dry kibble. It's very dehydrating for their liver and for their organs and for their bodies. So that was obviously something that my husband and I had already discussed. We had already done the research on that months ago, and we were definitely against. So we made sure to tell our vet we were completely against changing his diet to a hard food, even though we knew that something they were suggesting was that we needed to do a diet change, and we completely agreed with that. So basically, we were looking at different diets for Milo, trying to figure out ways to tweak it. Now, the diet that Milo was on at the time of this was actually a red meat beef stew with vegetables and blueberries by Whole Earth Farms. It is a very good food. There are no byproducts, not a lot of sodium. There is a little bit of sodium. Whole Earth Farms is a great brand for dogs and cats too. They do have a cat food as well. So we were convinced that this was a good food. He was on the beef recipe though, and only the beef recipe. So we weren't sure if that could have caused it or what. So we did take the vet's advice. We took Milo off of that, and because we didn't have anything to put him on in its place, we did decide to switch him to the ID Science diet for a few days just to see if that would help his levels or anything like that. We really weren't happy with it. We knew that was going to be temporary. However, it was just a temporary placeholder because we knew it wouldn't hurt him further. It just wasn't the best we could do, and we kind of felt that and knew that. We did start to do our own research, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So I decided to start reading and going online and looking at YouTube videos and seeing what other people did to treat their liver disease in dogs. So this is going to kind of be the treating it with diet method. Now, I want to mention that the vet did also put him on something called Denamarin. I will show you that. Basically, it is a pill that we would put with a little bit of peanut butter and give it to him every night. Now, Denamarin, also called Sammy, is a very popular supplement to give dogs who have liver issues. It is very popular, and vets will always recommend that or something similar to it. So that is something to mention to your vet if you're not sure. If they didn't mention Denamarin or Sammy, it's proven to be great for dogs with liver issues. However, we started doing research and reading, and we started doing a lot of reading. I actually already had these books on hand because they were my grandmother's. So I started reading these books on herbs and things like that because I did want to try and do all of my research. So I ended up calling a naturopath, or like a herbal vet, you know, like an herbalist. And I ended up speaking with this naturopath vet, and she suggested milk thistle, which is something that our main vet at Banfield, a mainstream vet, did not mention to us. So after doing a lot of research and reading these herbal books and basically just kind of soaking up full of knowledge, we read that something called milk thistle was something to consider for your dog if he has liver issues. So in my research, I went onto YouTube, and I actually was looking through all of the videos on dogs with liver disease and how people were treating it and different recipes and things, just trying to soak up as much knowledge as I could. The reason I was doing this is whenever I'm having an issue or something, yes, I take the vet and their advice and what they recommend, but I don't feel like that's always the only option, and there may be things that they're not telling me due to the fact that sometimes they are paid by certain brands or pharmaceutical companies and things like that. So I take their advice, but I also like to get the full story, and I always say look at both sides and you'll find the truth somewhere in the middle. So I went to YouTube and I saw a video by this woman right here. Her name is Cindy Smaisel, I believe is how you pronounce her name. She did a video on how her dog had liver disease and how she healed it with an all-natural diet. So I thought, okay, I hate this canned science diet. So I was looking at the recipes that she did for her dog, and she was saying that it completely helped her dog live many more years, which is her little spaniel you can see here in the picture. So I went on eBay immediately. I found this book, I bought it, and I'm telling you, if you have a dog with liver disease or any liver issues, I highly recommend this book. This woman is an engineer, and she took an interest because her dog, again, was ill, and she took a huge leap. She did a bunch of research, and she wrote this book on all of her findings. So I want to show you guys a few of the things that are in this book. So if you go in here, she covers healing herbs and supplements. She also has portions in here talking about the different things that could be wrong, what causes liver disease, different things like symptoms, things to look for, basically a lot of what I've been telling you guys, but in a lot more detail. She also goes over a lot of different herbs and things, like you can see basil, turmeric, all of these things here, and it tells you the healing properties that they have if you are considering a more natural diet, which is something that we were definitely considering for Milo at this time. Just to give you an idea, here is chapter 7, and you can kind of see what this looks like. As you can see, it's a really easy read. She even has a list here of common food allergens, so if there is something that your dog maybe is allergic to causing its liver to freak out, she gives you many lists in here of different things that could be causing it. This book completely saved us. It saved our mindsets because we were so busy studying and reading it for that week, waiting for that test, that it really gave us hope and made it feel like we could cure him with diet, you know? So one of my favorite chapters in this book is chapter 3 because it tells you how to cure your dog's liver disease with a homemade diet. Now, one of my favorite parts of this book is chapter 3 because it tells you all of the different vegetables and fruits that you can feed your dog that are safe for them and that will also help their liver if they are having liver issues. She puts a ton of different recipes in this book, as well as details all of the vegetables and the benefits that they have. Here you can see she's got whole lists of different things like how to prepare sweet potatoes, how to prepare yams and beets and things like that if it is something that you're wanting to feed your dog. And I will always be grateful to this woman for this book because we had so few resources. This book just really saved our emotional and mental state for that week while we were waiting, and also gave us a ton of great information and also helped us put together a recipe that worked for Milo. So basically, I'm going to take you guys into the kitchen shortly and show you guys exactly what we did and what we decided to cook for Milo and what kind of meal we tweaked for him. Like I mentioned, Milo was getting a predominantly red meat diet originally before we had this test done that showed his levels were spiked. So we weren't sure if it was his food or something else. Sometimes in dogs, especially small dogs, red meat can cause an ammonia buildup in the liver, which can cause liver issues and toxins and levels to spike, like happened with Milo. So we ended up taking Milo to Blue Pearl, which is basically like a special vet where they can do basically like radiology type things like ultrasounds, sonograms, x-rays and things. We ended up having an ultrasound done for Milo. Now the ultrasounds are very expensive, so we went on and did it. It was about $500 for the ultrasound, but we were very grateful that we did because it clearly determined what or if anything was wrong with Milo's liver that the blood tests and things could not tell us. So luckily, after a week and after his diet change onto that prescription diet off of the red meat diet, we discovered that Milo's liver was perfect. He didn't have microvascular disease. He didn't have any types of tumors or lesions, which was something else that they were considering wrong with his liver. Sometimes dogs can have different tumors and things in their liver, so that is something else that you want to look for. But luckily, the ultrasound showed that Milo didn't have any types of tumors or cancer or anything like that. Also, he didn't have the liver shunt, which we already knew because we had him tested for that years prior. But his ultrasound came back perfect, so they decided to go on and run another blood test on him to check his liver levels, and luckily all of his liver levels were back to normal, and we were so grateful. In fact, I believe his levels were running right about 200, which was a little bit high, but nothing like the 1400 that it was a week prior. So after we got those positive results back from the vet, we were so happy and so relieved. We decided to take him off of the Whole Earth Farms red meat recipe completely. We decided to completely change his diet altogether, and I'm going to show you guys what we decided to do. So after that ultrasound, we went hard. We went to Petco. We compared like a ton of different foods all together, and we decided to just look at them all, compare them all, and see which ones we thought would be the best for him. And if Whole Earth Farms didn't hold up to another food, we were willing to switch him onto a completely different brand altogether. After comparing 8 or 9 different wet canned dog foods that were all very high quality, Whole Earth Farms was still the best. So we did decide to stick with Whole Earth Farms, and we switched him to the chicken and white meat recipe, which we thought would be a little bit milder as he has eaten chicken and salmon type recipes his entire life, and that is what we are actually currently still giving him. Now, one thing I do want to mention before I take you guys into the kitchen and do our little cooking show where I show you guys how I prep Milo's vegetables, I do want to mention to you guys that there is something called a raw diet, which I wanted to mention and touch on briefly in this video. What we did decide against a raw diet for Milo. A raw diet essentially for a dog is basically raw meats, tendons, and organs and things like that. Like they may have beef tips or some sort of chicken wings with bone in and things like that, and people will actually feed their dog a completely raw diet of just lean cuts of meat or whatever they decide is best for their dog. They will also sometimes add on a raw egg cracked, or or they may add some fresh boiled vegetables with it, but the majority of the time they just feed their dog raw meat. Now, I understand that this is the way that dogs live naturally in the wild. If you go and find a wolf in the wild, they are eating raw meat. They're eating animals that they have killed themselves in the wild. They're not getting blueberries typically, maybe a little bit here and there if they eat some wild blueberries, but in general, they're typically not eating carrots and sweet potatoes, you know what I mean? And they're also not eating hard pellets. It's typically raw blood and bones. While we did look at this option for Milo just as something that we wanted to explore and make sure we had all of the knowledge on, the reason we ultimately decided against it, even though it was suggested to us by different people online, was mainly because yes, wolves and wild dogs in the wild will eat raw diet. If you look at Milo and his size and the type of breed that he has been bred to be, he is not a wolf. They're just two very completely different breeds of animal. And while yes, internally he is somewhat wolf, you know, of course, obviously he is a dog and wolves are dogs as well. I personally didn't feel that a raw diet was going to be best for Milo or best for his liver or anything like that. Not only has he never eaten a raw diet before, but also he's not a wolf. He, you know, isn't a hunter-gatherer. Milo is very dainty. He's very small. So while we did decide to switch him to a no-brine product, wet, healthy, with organic boiled vegetables, we decided against the raw diet. However, if you have a much larger dog and you feel that a raw diet is good for them, that is definitely something that you are completely free to explore for yourself. I did want to just mention that as an option if you're interested in a raw diet for your dog. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover with the liver disease and the symptoms, things to look for, how you can diagnose it, and now how you can treat it or basically keep it at bay. So now we're going to talk about the diet. Now, there are a lot of different foods that you can feed. I did obviously just go over the raw diet, which we decided against. That is a really high protein diet, and if you have a dog with liver disease, that's probably not your best bet. However, if you are interested in doing a homemade diet for your dog, which I highly recommend personally, I know that we're doing it. This book does have a lot of great recipes in there, as well as there are a lot of resources online and YouTube that you can look for yourself. Just make sure that whatever diet you choose, make sure that you're seeing some sort of a professional to help you guide you to make sure that you're not missing any vitamins or nutrients that your dog needs. Your dog does need protein. However, if they're getting too much protein, maybe you can substitute in some more carrots or sweet potato or some grains or things like that. You just need to consult with some sort of a doctor. Now, unfortunately, our vet that we were going to for Milo was completely against a homemade diet. They flat out told me that they wouldn't talk to me about it. They wouldn't recommend any options. They wouldn't even discuss it with me. Sadly, because vegetable companies aren't the ones that are paying for them to push, you know what I mean? Hill's Science Diet and Royal Canin and those types of brands do pay vets to push their foods and things like that. So unfortunately, our vet wouldn't talk to us about it at all. That's why we had to do a lot of this research for ourselves, and we also went and called a naturopath vet, and she was very lovely. She talked to us about it in depth, and she definitely helped us get a really good grasp on that. So if you want to do a homemade diet, maybe talk to a naturopath or some sort of a natural animal herbalist vet that will talk to you about that if that's something that you're interested in. Just please make sure you do your proper research, read a lot about it, make sure you're not leaving out anything that your dog could possibly need to make sure they're getting a well-balanced, rounded diet. Okay, so I think that's everything that I wanted to say. If I left anything out, I will write it on the screen or something, but I want to take you guys in the kitchen right now and show you guys how I cook Milo's food. Okay, so here is what we've got going on here. We have our large pot for boiling, which you will need. Here are the main vegetables that I put in Milo's diet. So here we have one organic sweet potato. It is completely raw right now. This is going to be microwaved. Here we have a couple of florets of broccoli. Now, I do not put all of this broccoli in here and just boil it. I'll show you how I prep this, as well as my organic baby carrots. Now, you want to make sure to get all organic. You don't want to risk giving your dog any pesticides or anything like that. That's pretty standard with any animal that you're feeding vegetables to. You can also do a couple of blueberries. However, the food that we're feeding Milo right now already has blueberries in it. So I haven't been adding the blueberries, but you can give a couple of blueberries here and there, and that will not hurt your dog either. Again, this is just what we did for Milo. Please make sure that you do your own research depending on your dog and what exactly your dog's having an issue with to make sure that you're giving them only safe fruits and vegetables. All 3 of these vegetables are proven to be safe for dogs pretty much in general, so these are the ones that I've gone with. Carrots are already included in Milo's food, so I know that he can have those as well. So I wanted to show you guys the canned foods that I was talking about earlier. So this is the hearty beef stew recipe that I was telling you guys that Milo used to be on. This is a great food for dogs, especially I believe bigger dogs would probably do really well with this. We give this to Dixie still, and she does really great with it. This is actually a beef, peas, carrots, and blueberry recipe. So this is actually the Whole Earth Farms food Milo is on now. This is the hearty chicken stew. It's basically carrots, peas, blueberries, and chicken, and it's basically exactly like it says, a stew. If you open this, it's very stew form. It looks like something you would make in a crock pot. Obviously, you want to make sure to look at the ingredients, and whenever you look at the ingredients, make sure that you do not see byproduct or a chicken byproduct or beef byproduct. If you see that, do not buy that food. It's just not the best that there is. This food has no byproducts. It has only chicken broth, deboned chicken, organic chicken, chicken liver, peas. You can see it has eggs, sweet potatoes, natural flavors, and different types of things in here, as well as blueberries. You also want to check the guaranteed analysis to make sure that you're not getting too much protein or too little protein for your dog. So yeah, this food is doing really, really well for Milo, and we're really enjoying it. This is another option. Now this is a beef dinner, but they do make a chicken recipe. Now I'm not giving Milo this one. We actually got this one by accident, but this is a smaller version. If you do have a very tiny dog and you don't want to buy these massive cans, you can do these small, tiny little cans as an option as well. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna prep these vegetables and then we're gonna get boiling. So while I'm prepping these vegetables, I wanted to tell you guys another thing that we did. We also decided to take Milo off of tap water. Now this is something we just decided to do. We didn't necessarily read this anywhere, but we did decide to only give him filtered water from here on out. So I am gonna be boiling all his vegetables in tap water, but that's not a big deal. But as far as his everyday drinking water, we only give him filtered water now. So we're basically just gonna cut all of these florets up really, really small, just like this. You just wanna kinda make them into crumbles because we're gonna be mashing all this. You don't want him to get any really big chunks. And it's very important that you do boil all of these vegetables. Do not fry them, don't saute them, nothing in oil, nothing like that, because that's really bad for their liver. We're just gonna boil this and then we are gonna mash it all together. So I'm basically just taking all of these florets and just kind of chopping the really good fibrous green portions off, and then I'm throwing away the stalk. He doesn't really need the stalk, and honestly that's not gonna mash very well. Pretty much what I do. Now Milo's very tiny, so I only have to do a couple of florets and it yields a pretty good amount of the green fibrous part. You don't have to do too crazy much. So with the carrots, these are gonna be boiled to a mash. We're gonna boil these for a really, really long time until you can completely just smash them up. Is this exciting for you guys? I wanna do cooking shows. Would you guys watch cooking shows if I did cooking shows on my channel? And then we're also gonna do the sweet potato, but we're not gonna dice this. We're actually gonna microwave this, and I'll show you that in a second. So basically, we're just gonna take all of this and we're gonna put it into our pot of water, and we're gonna boil this until it is able to be easily mashed. I know it's a lot of water and not a whole lot of veggies, but you don't want all that water to boil out, so it's fine. And we are just gonna leave all of this in here and let it boil completely down. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the sweet potato, we're gonna wrap it in a paper towel very easily, just like you would make a sweet potato for yourself. Then we are going to dampen this completely to where all the paper towel is wet, and we are gonna essentially steam the sweet potato in the microwave. I will cook it for about 7 to 8 minutes in the microwave, and then we will let it sit in the microwave and just sit in its steam to make sure that it fully softens and cooks, and then we will peel it and mash it in with the carrots and the broccoli. So these have been boiling for over 30 minutes, so they should be completely soft and easy to mash. We're gonna take this and drain it, and then we are going to mash it with the sweet potato. So here are my broccoli and carrot, and I'm just gonna dump them in this dish right here. Still really, really hot. And that is pretty much what the carrot and broccoli look like. And then we have our sweet potato here, and we are basically just gonna empty the sweet potato out in here with the carrots and the broccoli. I don't do this perfectly. I just take the sweet potato after it's cool. Like, this is cool to the touch, so it's not hot. And then I take it and I just squeeze it and I empty it into here just like that. Just super quick and flimsy and easy. Okay, there's the sweet potato and then the carrot and the broccoli, and then we're gonna mash all this together. Now, this is the part where if you wanted to add in any type of herbs or milk thistle or anything, you could, or you can wait until you're gonna feed your pet. And Milo only gets about a tablespoon of this with his food, which I'll show you guys. I prepare this every weekend, and then I just keep it in the fridge, and it will keep for about 5 to 6 days. You guys cannot see me, but I basically just take his can of food, and I take about 1/4 to 1/2 of a can, and we put it in his dish. Now, this is appropriate for a small Yorkie. If you have a bigger dog, you may need to use the whole can. You just need to basically portion it out to the size of your dog. Milo's really tiny, so he only gets about 1/4 of a can with a tablespoon of veggies twice a day. And then I take about 1 tablespoon of the vegetable mixture. So I take the veggies and I mix it in, and then I will usually take a couple of blueberries, usually just 2, and I will also mash those in with the rest of his food. And that is pretty much how I prepare Milo's food. Okay guys, that is it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. If you're having any issues with your dog's liver, I wish you every bit of peace and luck with it. I know that it's stressful. Try to remain calm, and remember, watch out for those symptoms early, especially if you have an older dog. If you catch it really quick like we did, you can prevent and even reverse these types of liver diseases and things like that in your animal. It is possible. Just remain patient. If you don't like what your vet is telling you, maybe try an all-natural vet or an herbalist or a naturopath or something like that and see what they have to say. Also, do the research for yourself. Don't just take what one person says. Remember, take multiple opinions and you'll find the truth somewhere in the middle. That's what we did, and that's kind of what I live by. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any further questions regarding this, or if you feel like there's anything I left out or didn't touch on, feel free to leave it in the comments down below, and I would be happy to discuss it with you. Also, please remember, I am not a vet. I am not a trained professional. This is just my experience over the past few months and all of the research that I've done and from the multiple vets that I've spoke to and worked with. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was helpful for you. Good luck to you and your pet. If you don't follow me on Instagram or Snapchat, I will put that on the screen for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video. Be kind. Bye.